Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Leonard Nimoy's book, You and I, Live Long and Prosper. So Leonard Nimoy, obviously an amazing actor, huge influential figure. His character Spock on Star Trek, super important in cultural history. Leonard Nimoy, not a great poet, unfortunately. He's a very 70s poet. This book came out in 1973, I think. And yeah, 1973. And yeah, it's in that vein of sort of new agey, late hippie type poetry that often ends up putting the emphasis on big abstract concepts rather than on concrete imagery. The thing that is cool about this book is that it pairs poems with pictures, with photographs. So, for instance, this is the picture. It's 1973, and these are printed pictures, so they're not great quality necessarily. But this is the picture associated with the first poem that I'm going to read for you. So that's kind of cool. The multimedia element is somewhat interesting here. It's also a slightly odd collection. There are no poem titles, and some of them do feel like they are part of a sort of ongoing poetic narrative, whereas others very much feel like they stand alone. So I'm going to read you several of these poems. There's also no page numbers. So other than just reading them, I have no real way of indicating to you how you would find them in the book. So the first several that I'm going to read to you are this very much sort of like, this is all abstractions. This is all very vague. There's nothing concrete here, no imagery, any of these kinds of traditional poetic techniques. That I think this is a very common strategy among emerging poets. So yeah, here we go. And even when there are sort of metaphors, they're really not rooted in imagery, which we get in this sort of first one. We have this metaphor, and it's not a terrible metaphor. It's not an innovative metaphor necessarily, but it's not really developed visually. So here's the first one I'm going to read you. In my heart is the seed of the tree which will be me, nourished by understanding, warmed by friends, fed by loved ones, matured by wisdom, tempered by tears. Again, it's not a bad metaphor necessarily, but if it were developed visually through sensory description, I think it would be better. Here's another one. Some rush about in preparation, some struggle to be nearest to the gate, some climb to be at the highest place, and yet we shall all be born, all will move about in time and space. Not really any imagery there. Here's one. I am alone. There are times when I think I am, I am not alone. There are times when I think I am, feel like I am, alone and lost. But as the river bends, and the drifting traveler sees the unfolding of new vistas, new horizons, new landmarks, I find a new communion with the turn of time, a new sense of universal connection. So you very much start to see the new agey element here with these sort of ideas of universal connection and all this stuff. Here's a sort of growing poem that develops over the course of 5 lines. Again, zero imagery. I am ready. I am ready to give. I am ready to give and to receive. I am ready to give and to receive love. Love ends up being quite a good, or quite a common abstraction in these poems. It's very, very common that love ends up doing a lot of the heavy lifting of creating meaning, etc., etc. And it's not always successful, in, again, large part because love is such an abstract concept. It really is not developed in any more depth than that. So the ones that I've read you so far are quite short. All of them are short, but some of them are a bit longer. The next one I'm going to read you. So in the latter half of the book, we start to get more imagery. We do still have those very abstract, undeveloped, unimage-based poems, but we start to get some that have more imagery. So the next one I'm going to read you, I think this is one poem. It's broken over these 2 pages with the picture kind of in the middle. But I think it's one poem, because normally in this book you get on one page a poem and on the other page the picture. And there are a few where you get poem and picture on one page and poem on another. And so I think that those are meant to be connected, but I'm not 100% sure, because again, there's no titles, and so there's no clear demarcations between poems necessarily. But this one has a refrain of sorts, so I think this is connected. In the midst of lies and painful sorrows, lonely men without tomorrows, promises not meant for keeping, curtains drawn but not for sleeping, on top of the mountains stand you and I. The eye of time looks on in wonder, the circus band blares out its number, gray heads sitting in the sun, wondering what they might have done, in the vortex stand you and I. In the rushing, crushing, pell-mell dashing, flow of moments going by, blowing winds and falling leaves, swaying trees that bend and sigh, prayers floating, hearts emoting, in the center ring stand you and I. So, I mean, the refrain here is really just stand you and I. But this poem obviously has a much more lyrical rhythm to it than the majority of the poems. It is better developed. The imagery, while still generally abstract and not especially sort of sensory descriptive, is definitely much more effective than most of the poems, most of the very abstract poems that depend on these vague emotional or psychological concepts, cultural constructions, whatever it is. Okay, so the last one I'm going to read you, this is again one that is a bit more image-based, so that's very exciting comparatively for this book. But again, still very much in that sort of new agey, early 70s poetry type way. High, high up on a hill in a house of ruby glass, living in the warmth of the sun, lives the love I look for. In a ruby glass house without a door, burning, reflecting from the eye of my desire. So again, a little bit better, a little bit stronger as far as concrete imagery and drawing us into a world that we could envision goes. So, yeah. Again, Leonard Nimoy, he was absolutely amazing as an actor. I don't think he was a good poet. I'm sorry.